Dear students, good evening. Welcome to Law Excellence IAS. Let us start the editorial analysis for today, November 23rd, 2022. The first article, Think Local Climate Action, Think Meenan Gadi. This article is very important for our plus one advantage. We can use this as a case study or an example while consolidating our point. In the case of interview, you can quote these as examples for decentralization, and decentralization is critical for goal achievement or outcome achievement. Decentralization is critical for development. For any point in these lines to substantiate that, the examples which I am going to give here are useful. In this case, India aims to become carbon neutral by 2070. To achieve this goal, what has to be the strategy? Shall we act from above or shall we act from below? The article argues that an action from below with local governments and community participation can achieve the climate change or carbon targets very easily. And there are critical examples to prove that. What these have done is their local developmental plans, village local developmental plans, and eco plans or environmental plans, they were integrated with each other and the goals are carefully monitored. And finally, these villages as a unit have become carbon neutral. If every village and every city in India becomes carbon neutral, obviously India is expected to become the carbon neutral country. Let us examine this. So first is Meenan Gadi example. Let us try to understand. So it is a panchayat in Wayanad district of Kerala. In this case, in 2016, they launched Meenan Gadi carbon neutral project. So in this case, first is what is carbon neutrality? They have to explain it to the participants. That is what we called as first step they took is awareness generation. After the awareness generation, they developed existing level of emissions by that particular village. So the greenhouse gas inventory was prepared. So it means how much we are responsible for the greenhouse gases, how much is excess of production of carbon that is estimated. The second is they have conducted a Grama Sabha meeting. What is the purpose of Grama Sabha meeting? To build consensus and to develop an action plan how to go forward. And also socio-economic survey of the village. It means how much energy consumption by every household, how much is vehicular emissions by every household, and added to that, what is the energy mapping of every household. Everything is being clearly done because of this action plan. After that, they brought in synergy between various steps which are being taken by the government of India. Carbon sequestration, emission reduction, preservation of ecology, biodiversity. Among all these activities, they brought in one synergy through a common action plan. And also they initiated something called a tree banking scheme. So under this, planting the trees to absorb the excess carbon is taken up. And also, they just did not plant the trees. They also have protected them. They used the technology. Every plant that is planted was geotagged. Because of this collective effort, last year, Meenan Gadi has become carbon neutral. So, any action has to come from bottom. People participation, local plans, consensus building, these are very critical towards carbon neutrality. Let's go to Jammu and Kashmir for Palli Gram Panchayat. What they did is they have prepared climate resilient plan. And this climate resilient plan is been integrated with the village development plan of the Panchayat. And added to that, the energy, they shifted themselves to the renewable energy, biogas plants, solar plants, etc. are being constructed. So this conscious effort has to be noted as a case study to develop awareness across the world. Now, if you want to see the community participation, what it can bring the change, a river restoration project. The river name is Kali Bean project. So this river is being restored in Punjab in Gram Panchayat called Sichawal, and today it is an active, lively river. And like this, we have got examples. In this case, Ministry of Rural Development, it also has created certain programs to ensure this activity that is called Clean and Green Energy Theme. Under this, every activity of the village is documented and they will be provided with necessary incentives. The eco plans, development plans of village are integrated. This is being facilitated also at the national level by the Ministry of Rural Development to scale up this. So what is the learning outcome from this article? Remember, any development has to be built from the bottom. If you impose from the above, they miss at the ground level. So the implementation as important as strategy. Second thing is the integration and synchronization of village development plans and ecological plans are necessary. Third is community participation, consensus building, development of a roadmap action plan are critical for every village or local government to become carbon neutral. These are the points which we need to understand. The India poll in international politics. So normally, whenever we talk about international affairs, is India becoming a dominant power? This is the question which we get. And second, whenever we discuss Russia-Ukraine conflict, people ask the question on which side India is. So instead of asking that particular question, which side India is, what is the side of India? What is the perspective of India on this issue? That would be the right question. The reason is, India always has maintained the strategic autonomy from independence and it is going to continue further. So the India poll, what it signifies that India has a strategic periphery and it wants to protect its boundaries in this strategic periphery. And it don't want outsiders to interfere in its strategic periphery in South Asia. Third is, there is Global South. This Global South has low voice in the global affairs. So India wants to be voice to the concerns of the Global South and marginalized countries. Finally, India wants a stable, working world order, regional order. Rule of law is very critical for India. So this is what India poll signifies. So India poll is not about dominating, maintaining balance of power. It is not about influencing the global order. India poll is all about ensuring the voice of the global south and also providing for a rule-based global order. That is how the opinion is expressed by Mr. Happy Mon Jacob. Strategy to save. Why this article is in the news? What is the context? National Suicide Prevention Strategy. This is prepared by Ministry of Health and Family Welfare. What are the facts on the ground? The suicide is the second most cause of the death among the teenagers and adolescents. And most of these suicides are preventable. What is this strategy's objective? It is to reduce suicide mortality by 10% by 2030. In this case, what are the steps suggested by National Suicide Prevention Strategy? Remember, suicide is preventable if it is being intervened rightly. What are the interventions? Any person who has substance abuse, depression, etc., a strong surveillance mechanism is required onto them. Psychiatric and counseling support has to be developed across the districts. And mental health curriculum, mental problems are not wrong. This has to be enlightened in every young mind. So mental health problems are treatable and there is nothing wrong in them. So awareness generation through education on mental health problems is also critical. And finally, with regard to farmers, etc., access to pesticides have to be decreased and the substance abuse these people are there, for them rehabilitation, etc., has to be undertaken. So these are the various steps this National Suicide Prevention Strategy wants to undertake. Persisting issues. This is about the Digital Personal Data Bill, DPDP, Digital Personal Data Protection Bill. If you carefully observe, the present bill is being lightened up compared to previous bill that was withdrawn by the government. Let us try to understand what are the provisions which are being lightened up. What are the strengths of this? So first is collection limitation. It means how much A data fiduciary has to collect the information from you. Data fiduciary means one holds your data. Let us take Google, which collects the data, is data fiduciary. Who is giving the data is data principal. If I am giving my data to Google, I become data principal. Google becomes the data fiduciary. So how much data Google can collect with relation to a certain activity, it is called collection limitation. So this collection limitation is being removed. Our purpose limitation is no more existing under this particular bill. And the next is how much time these data fiduciaries shall save this particular data. Can data fiduciaries or are data fiduciaries responsible to inform the customer about their data sharing with others? Let's say Google is sharing my data with some other company. Is Google bound to inform me that? And second, how many years Google can save this particular data? Duration of storage, necessary information, these are not being clearly mentioned over here. And finally, let us try to understand. Government is also a data fiduciary. It means government also holds a lot of data related to citizens. In this context, government trying to hold the data of the people and control this particular bill, regulate the provisions of the bill, there is a clear conflict of interest. If you carefully observe, non-consensual data access, it means I did not give access to data, but government has collected this data from the other source. That is called non-consensual access to personal data. So in this case, there is no parliamentary or judicial oversight. So clearly, government authorities can misuse this data. Finally, there is conflict of interest for the government because it is collecting the data and it is also regulating the various aspects of the bill. So one way it has to protect the personal data. On the other side, it is also a one which wants to use the data. See carefully over here. Data Protection Board of India was created. Who has to determine the service conditions, appointment, removal of the members of Data Protection Board? It is not by an independent authority, it is by the government. Don't you think through Data Protection Board, government can influence the working of this particular bill? Yes, this is what is the conflict of interest. We have another article on the same bill. We can understand how government can control our lives through this particular bill or through controlling the Data Protection Board. We will try to see over there. A bill protecting state surveillance. What is meant by state surveillance? So the state trying to follow you, trying to observe you, monitor your activities, we call it as state surveillance. How state can do surveillance? Through the data which you give to the state. So the data is an important source of surveillance. So how the state surveillance is increasing with the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill? Simple. There is a clause called exemption clause. Certain agencies like IB or CBI, which are investigative in nature or which are critical for the protection of the security of India, these agencies were given exemption with regard to consent for data. So this exemption is not on a case-to-case basis. What is meant by case-to-case basis? Let us take if they want data about me which is non-consensual, which I am not agreeing to, they have to go to authority and take permission for that. For here, there is no such case-to-case basis is required. Any data they can freely get. Obviously, that gives a scope for misuse of the data. If you go to Western countries, what will happen? They have to collect the data. Investigative agencies or intelligence agencies have to collect the data on a case-to-case basis. And over the investigative agencies also there is an oversight or monitoring mechanism. If you take in UK, Investigatory Powers Tribunal is there. What is the purpose of this tribunal? It is to monitor how the investigative agencies or intelligence agencies are using the personal data of the people. And second, purpose limitation. For what purpose data is being collected, it is not clear. And also there is a clear exchange of data between the government departments. I give certain data to Ministry of External Affairs, passport data, Aadhaar data, and then we have income tax data. So the government wants to bring in seamless data retrieval for all the departments. This approach is called whole of the government approach. So government can build a citizen profile based on the data which it is collecting from across the departments. So is government going to take the consent for all this? It is doubtful. And added to that, recently if you observe, Criminal Procedure Identification Act, this is passed by the Parliament. And in this, the biometric data of the citizens, they want to save it for 75 years. So the state is hungry for personal data of the people. And if you observe, the telecom companies, they always complain that investigative agencies are asking for data day in and day out. And that particular data maintenance has to be paid by the government. That is what is the Airtel's request recently. So this obviously is going to increase the state surveillance. What are the points? First is blanket exemption, no meaningful oversight, there is no purpose limitation, and government building the citizen profile and storing the biometric data of the citizens. All this clearly show that the weaknesses of the data protection bill will increase the state surveillance on the citizens. Next is certain news articles which I have covered on Chief Election Commissioner. Chief Election Commissioner and Election Commission of India, it is like an umpire in a game. It is supposed to be impartial and neutral and independent. So how far the Election Commission is independent, the Supreme Court is hearing this matter. And what the judges of Supreme Court has questioned, independence also comes from the tenure of the members occupying the positions in the institution. If you observe in the initial years, the CAC stayed in the office for almost 80 years. The law says that the minimum has to be 65 years or 6 years, whichever is earlier. But today, if you observe the tenure of the Chief Election Commissioner, in reality, it is few hundred days, less than 1 year. When we have such a small tenure, can you really initiate reforms and can remain independent? This is what is the question posed by the Supreme Court. Next is I2U2. What is that? India, Israel, USA, UAE. It's a new West Asian quadrilateral which is being developed. So they have held talks recently in Abu Dhabi for food security cooperation. And next is, we have to talk about Unnati project. So under Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, there is a project which is launched that is called Unnati project. So to decrease the dependency of the people on MG Nariga, they have created this Unnati project. So the dependence of this scheme has to be diverted to the Unnati project to raise their skills, and they have to be employed in the other projects. In this case, most of the state governments have underperformed. When the target is in lakhs, they don't even deliver. They did not even deliver thousands. So that's why what the central government did today. So Unnati performance is linked to the labor budget allocations to the states. And next, India-Australia completed a trade pact which is called Economic Cooperation and Trade Agreement. RBI concerns on slow deposit growth. So today in India, credit growth is very high, but the deposit growth is falling. This is a concern because these deposits are critical for capital formation in the country, which is critical for the economic growth. So this is the concern which is expressed by the RBI. So the credit growth, why it is happening? During the COVID-19, the economic activity is less, and as economic activity has picked up, the credit growth has decreased. As interest rates have decreased, the deposit growths have expected to be decreased. Next, the Supreme Court ruling on pensions for women IAF officers, Indian Air Force officers. Why did I pick up this article? So you need to remember this case, Babita Punia case. In this, Supreme Court has clearly stated that women officers shall be granted permanent commission and shall be posted everywhere in all services other than combat. So that's why this Babita Punia case is stated to be a remarkable judgment of the Supreme Court with regard to women empowerment and entry of women into armed forces. These are the articles for today. Thank you very much.